Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Kojima Powered, and thank you very much for joining me for another high polyphase time-lapse. In this video, I'm featuring a redesign of Eobard Thawne, also known as the Reverse Flash, as seen in CW series The Flash. Since its debut in 1963, Eobard Thawne's origins have been retconned 3 times, 4 times if you count the show. However, the series genre is more of a retelling tailored for television audiences rather than a legitimate retcon. Chronologically, the origins of the character are out of joint. With that said, I can only explain the parts of his origins that share the most consistency. Eobard Thawne also goes by the Reverse Flash, or Professor Zoom. He's described to be a time-traveling villain from the 25th century whose obsession inadvertently facilitated his own undoing, except he's not really gone. Retroactive continuity dictates Eobard to be a time-traveling villain, and because he has existed at some point in time where he was immune to changes in the timeline, he will always exist in spite of existing in a causal paradox. Whenever he can, and wherever he can, he uses his super speed to thwart the efforts of Barry Allen, the source of his fixation. Since there's so much uncertainty with Eobard's backstory, I've elected to depict him incorporating elements from both the Silver Age comics and the series. If you look carefully, I've included a throwback to his jetpack. Remember his jetpack? Anyway, I had a lot of fun in creating this one, so I'll get on with sharing my process in the creation of the Reverse Flash.
I'm always one step ahead. You're too slow, Barry.
So, as you can see, we first start out with a front shot of our character. Even though the role of Eobard Thawne is also shared by actor Matt Lesher, I elected to model Tom Cavanaugh because his face has more character to me, and as a sculptor, you want your face to tell as much story as possible while being a static object. Also, I'm still partial to him from Season 1. It's going on to be about 4 years from now, and I still think he did a fantastic job. For me, he's up there with William Dafoe. And in all honesty, the only reason why I watch the drama and stay watching the drama is because of the talent that he brings to the character that he portrays. Or characters, rather. So, at this point, you just want to get some real estate down to build off of. For myself, it was just going to be a static sculpt of a face. I had no intention of animating it in the future. With that said, I was predominantly concerned with accurately planning out the ratios of the face that resembled the image the most. It's part psychology, part math, and all art. The most essential areas to capture are the eyes, the areas under the eyes, the nose, and the mouth. If you can capture these ratios and proportions and represent them accurately, the elusive quality likeness quite simply becomes recognizable. Seriously, if you're a 3D artist, my homework for you is to research how facial recognition technology works. It'll help your art tremendously. I omitted featuring this in depth, but I briefly crossed programs from Maya to ZBrush and back to Maya again. My goal in so doing was to project the high poly light information onto the low poly model. After 2.5 days, I was satisfied to say I finally captured the likeness of our actor. Now, let's celebrate by putting a mask over all of our hard work, shall we? With the body being the second priority, I threw down some primitives that best represented the areas in the Reverse Flash's suit, keeping in mind to configure my topology to align with the contour of the suit. I pulled heavily from the series rather than the comics. The series chose an unorthodox approach to handling the yellow suit. All the time when I was modeling this, I was thinking that the costume designer must have had an unused yellow jacket in the corner just collecting dust. When they were finally commissioned to make the costume, they were like, "You all thought I was crazy, but I knew all along that yellow leather would come in handy someday." Season 5 just aired last night, and I have no idea what changes they've made to the costumes. Online, there's a lot of hype about the suit fitting in the ring, and if I could ever afford a 3D printer, I swear that's the first thing I'm going to make, the Reverse Flash's ring. Screw you, Green Lantern. Anyway, I should point out that because of time constraints, I elected to omit a lot of the torso's creation. All you're really missing is that, in that state, it was just feeling kinda plain. So I decided to incorporate some lightning bolt patterns into the chest and work some futuristic tech into the areas such as the shoulder pads, the back, and forearms. I added some padding here and there to try to convey that there were malleable parts to the suit as well as rigid. At times like these, it's best just to let your imagination go wild. The character was from the 25th century after all. There are certain givens though. You want to keep in mind that whenever there are two different forms that come together, it's a good idea to exaggerate the differences between the two surfaces as much as possible. For hard surfaces, I kept my edges crisp, and for the padding in between, I used a brush to relax my mesh to give it a softer appearance. Also, it's good practice to accent the end of those forms to signify that it's a different material. You just can't have one form shamelessly clipping into another. The most apparent areas to look out for are the shoulders, the neck, and the backs of the knees, for humanoid models at least. The pants were a time sink. The more I practice at it, the quicker I get, and even then, I'm never quite satisfied. This could be remedied if I could just invest the time in modeling some generic fabric crinkles of choice areas to incorporate into future projects. Anyway, the predominant fabric gauge I ended up choosing was a thicker worn material. I started off by referencing some images of the yellow costume and tried to emulate what I saw. I approached the process by focusing on defining the main folds and working my way to the minute crinkles. I was thinking, since the fabric was worn by a super-speeded villain, it was likely flexed zillions of times, so I chose to break up the fabric gauges into two parts. Damn straight, the reverse flash is all about running. Thus, the obvious areas that needed the most attention were between the legs and the backs of the knees. Also, the character was from the future, so I thought it was a good idea to allocate some areas to accommodate some fancy tech. Because nothing says future like tech, right? The aesthetic I was trying to convey was all about lightning and speed. Like in the torso section, I chose a sleek, zigzag lightning bolt sort of design to unify the theme. I was tired of modeling fabric, and it was a welcome change of pace to break up the monotony by incorporating some rigid forms down the side. The only problems I faced here were those forms were rigid, and it took a lot of tweaking to get it to follow the contour. My intent was to mirror that time and labor onto the adjacent side, however, my pants were too asymmetrical for it to be seamless. It was nothing that a lattice couldn't fix, though. If only all parts of modeling could be fixed this easily. I'm sorry, ladies and gentlemen, I know this is off topic, but in between phases, I was researching on how to set up some of the effects from the CW's drama. Particularly, in Season 1, there was a bullet-time fight scene in the living room on the night of the murder. At parts, there was such fine control over the lightning arcs, which led me to believe that they were driven by some sort of spline rig. I was in luck. I managed to find the effect. This effect was built by artist Alex Rideout, and just like Eobard Thawne, I tried to reverse engineer how he created it. However, my attempts to duplicate the effect keep failing. Whenever I try to bind a lightning paint effect to a spline, it breaks the paint effect. So, if by any chance, if there is a paint effects guru out there, can you please explain to me how this effect was achieved? Maybe even do a tutorial? The effect is around 6 years old or so, or rather support for it, that is. There's so many facets to film creation that it can seem daunting at times. There are new techniques being developed every year, and learning what you want can be challenging because there's so many alternative, not to mention competitive ways that any one thing can be achieved. If you're an artist, you know what I mean. You just can't stay content by doing any one thing. To be an artist is to wear many hats. Anyway, back on topic. I was just about to finish up on the pants, and all that you really missed was that I added some knee pads as a visual cue to signify the end of one material and the beginning of another. In sculpting, it's important to pay equal attention to the posterior as well as the anterior. Because I tend to invest more detail in the beginning, I started the boobs off posterior first, and I must say, I was really pleased with the results. My goal was to create some kind of futuristic hybrid boot running shoe. It needed to be high-tech, so I added some chrome bits here and there, in addition to some future buckles. You still want your viewer to recognize it as a worn accessory and not a robotic leg. I didn't feel bad about taking a few artistic liberties here and there, because initially Eobard Thawne himself used his genius and futuristic technology to amplify and improve the suit. In every way but one, he was the superior speedster, except his protection from the extreme velocity was derived from the chemical bath that gave Barry Allen his speed, while Barry's protection came from the lightning, which would subsequently be written into the Speed Force. Eobard always had a criminal reputation among the police and the crooks of his time. He was notorious for using his genius for crime, and thus his criminal alias was The Professor. It was only after attaining super swift motion that he referred to himself as Professor Zoom. Professor Zoom envied the Flash, and considered himself to be the reverse in every way. So this piece wouldn't be complete until I modeled the eponymous Reverse Lightning Bolt. The reverse emblem symbolizes that he is the true arch-nemesis of the Flash. Unfortunately, it also symbolizes that I should draw an end to this time-lapse, so I want to thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you with the next one, ladies and gentlemen. Hello again, ladies and gentlemen. It's just a little bit of an afterthought here. I joked about it earlier, but for those of you who don't know the Reverse Flash, he has this, effect that, it's hard to explain. He's standing still, but his, appearance is obscured by the twisted effect of the negative speed force or something, I don't know. So, I was thinking that it wouldn't be fair to end my time-lapse without me attempting this myself. So, yeah, let's take some time to, I guess, appreciate all of our detail. Because it'll be gone in a flash.
With a determined Scarlet Speedster straining every muscle.
There, I pulled ahead of him a little. Not much, but it'll give me the split instant I need to turn around and grab him. Like this. Huh? I grabbed empty air. Just a little improvement I've made on the super swift velocity we both possess, Flash. Twin portable electro rockets to give me an extra boost of acceleration whenever I need it. You little bitch.